He walked in for an interview, but he walked out the owner. And the craziest part? The interviewer planned it the whole time. Jordan stood outside the old brick restaurant with his resume folded in his hand, edges crumpled from how tightly he'd been squeezing it on the bus ride over. He took a deep breath, the kind where you try to convince yourself that everything is going to be okay even when it clearly isn't. He adjusted his shirt, wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans, and whispered to himself, "Just don't mess this up." He wasn't here because he wanted to be. He was here because he had no other choice. Life had been punching him harder and harder for months. First, he lost his retail job when the store shut down. Then his roommate moved out without warning, leaving him with full rent he couldn't afford. His car broke down next. His emergency savings vanished in 2 weeks. And now his landlord had given him a final notice: pay or vacate. Jordan didn't have a family to fall back on. No connections. No rich uncle waiting to help. All he had was hope, thin, fragile, shaking hope, that this interview could buy him time. Just a little time. Just one steady paycheck. As he reached for the restaurant's door handle, he noticed his hand trembling. He closed his fist and exhaled sharply, trying to gather whatever confidence he had left. It's just an interview, he told himself. But in reality, it felt like the last bridge before everything collapsed. He pushed the door open. Instead of walking into the lively smell of food and the buzz of customers, he stepped into silence. Not peaceful silence, empty silence. The kind that felt cold. The kind that made your footsteps echo too loudly. There were no customers eating. No chatter. No clinking plates. Just empty tables and tired faces. A waitress leaned against the counter, arms crossed, staring at the floor like she'd given up on something long ago. A cook peeked through the kitchen window, dark circles under his eyes, moving slowly like he was carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. The lights weren't fully bright. Half of them flickered lazily as if they, too, were tired of trying. Jordan blinked. Is this place even open? He wondered. He took a cautious step inside. The old wooden floor creaked loudly, making the waitress look up at him with surprise. No, not surprise, more like confusion. Like she wasn't expecting anyone to show up today. You here for the interview? She asked, her voice flat, drained. Yeah, Jordan replied, trying to sound confident. She nodded toward the back office, then went back to staring at nothing. Not her phone, not a notebook, nothing. Just empty space. And that shook Jordan more than anything. Because people who stare at nothing aren't bored. They're hopeless. As he walked further in, he noticed the small details people usually ignore. A torn menu taped together. A broken chair pushed against the wall. Dust settled on decorations that once tried to look welcoming. And a faint smell of something burnt lingering in the air, like someone had given up halfway through cooking. Jordan's chest tightened. He came here needing a job, but this place looked like it needed saving. The more he looked around, the stranger it felt. The restaurant wasn't just quiet, it felt abandoned while still being alive. As if everyone working here was just waiting for the final announcement. We're shutting down. Jordan swallowed hard. None of this helped his nerves. He'd prepared answers for normal interview questions. He had practiced shaking hands with confidence. He had watched YouTube videos on how to look job-ready and motivated. But all of that felt useless here. Something about this place was off, drastically off. He stood outside the office door and hesitated. The small glass window on the door showed a man sitting inside, hunched forward, rubbing his forehead like he was carrying a headache that had lasted for years. Papers were scattered across the desk. A sign on the wall behind him read, "Established 1998, but the paint was peeling." Jordan gently knocked. The man looked up slowly. The look in his eyes wasn't the look of an employer ready to hire. It was the look of a man fighting a losing battle. "Come in," the man said, his voice low, tired. Jordan stepped inside and sat down. The chair wobbled under him, as if even the furniture was exhausted. He tried to smile politely, but the man barely reacted. He looked at Jordan's resume, flipped it once, then placed it aside without reading it. No warm welcome. No handshake. No, tell me about yourself. Just silence. Jordan felt the weight of the room pressing on him. The silence wasn't just awkward, it felt meaningful. Heavy. Like the entire restaurant was holding its breath. Finally, after what felt like a full minute, the man said, "You're here for the manager position." "Yes, sir," Jordan replied. I. The man cut him off. Before we talk about that, let me ask you something different. Jordan straightened up. His heartbeat picked up again. The man leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on Jordan, as if trying to read his soul. If this place were yours, he said slowly, what would you fix first? Jordan blinked. This wasn't a normal interview. This wasn't a normal restaurant. This wasn't a normal day. Something strange was happening. Something big. Something he wasn't ready for. And as he sat there, surrounded by the silence of a dying business, Jordan felt a chill run through him. He didn't know it yet, but this wasn't the day he was looking for a job. This was the day his entire life was about to flip upside down. Jordan sat in the unstable office chair, trying his best not to look as nervous as he felt. The room smelled faintly of old paper and burnt coffee. A broken clock on the wall ticked unevenly, like even it was tired of keeping time in this place. Mr. Harris, the owner, sat across from him. A man in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. Hair gray not because of age, but because of stress. Eyes sharp, but dimmed by exhaustion. Movements slow, as if every action cost him effort. This was supposed to be a job interview. But from the moment Jordan walked into the room, nothing felt right. No handshake. No smile. No welcome, thanks for coming. Just a long, heavy stare. Mr. Harris held Jordan's resume without looking at it. He flipped it once, twice, then dropped it on the desk like it weighed nothing at all. Or maybe like it didn't matter. Jordan cleared his throat softly. Sir, I. Harris raised a hand. A small gesture, but enough to silence him. The owner leaned back slowly, staring straight into Jordan's eyes, not in an intimidating way, but in a searching way. As if he was looking for something inside him. Something Jordan wasn't even sure he had. Then, instead of asking a question about experience or references, he said something completely unexpected. If this place were yours, what's the first thing you'd fix? Jordan blinked. For a second, he thought he misheard. He waited for the real question. Waited for the normal interview to start. But Harris remained perfectly still, eyebrows raised slightly, like he genuinely wanted the answer. Jordan opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Because this wasn't a job question. This wasn't normal. This felt like a test he hadn't studied for. His mind raced. Why would he ask that? Is this some trick? Is he testing my creativity? My leadership? My confidence? Or worse, is he expecting me to already know what's wrong? Jordan looked around the little office for clues. Stacks of unpaid bills on the desk. A cracked picture frame on the shelf showing happier days. A young Mr. Harris smiling proudly in front of a full restaurant. A dusty award hanging crooked on the wall. Everything screamed struggle, pressure, failure. And now this man wanted Jordan to tell him what was broken. Jordan took a slow breath. He was terrified of saying the wrong thing. Terrified of offending him. Terrified this question would decide his fate. Sir, Jordan said carefully, are you asking what I would change, hypothetically? No, Harris replied immediately. Not hypothetically. Answer it like it's real. Jordan's heartbeat doubled. Real? Why would he want him to answer like it's real? Jordan swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. He'd never run a restaurant. He'd never owned anything bigger than a laptop. He didn't feel qualified to tell a man twice his age how to fix his business. But something in Harris's eyes told him this was not the moment to hold back. This man wasn't looking for politeness. He was looking for truth. Jordan inhaled and said softly, the place feels empty. Harris didn't react. He didn't nod, didn't frown, just stared, encouraging him to continue. So Jordan did. I mean, when I walked in, the energy felt dead. The staff looked exhausted. The room felt heavy. It didn't feel like a place people would want to eat in. It felt like a place they'd avoid. That was risky. Jordan knew it, but Harris still didn't stop him. Encouraged, Jordan kept going. The atmosphere needs life. The menu probably needs updating. The marketing looks outdated. And honestly, the brand doesn't feel like it stands out anymore. Silence. Jordan felt his throat tighten. Had he said too much? Had he insulted the man without meaning to? Harris leaned forward slowly, folding his hands together. For the first time since the interview started, he looked interested. And why do you think people would come back, he asked, if those things were fixed? Jordan hesitated. He felt like he was walking on a rope suspended over fire. But something inside him clicked. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the strange energy in the room. He spoke honestly. Because this place has potential. The building has character. The location is good. But right now, there's no reason for anyone to walk in. If you rebuild the atmosphere, make the menu exciting, give people a reason to talk about it, this place could come back. A slow smile grew on Harris's face. Not a happy smile. Not a sarcastic one. A knowing smile. This is exactly what I needed to hear smile. Jordan's stomach flipped. Why was he smiling like that? Why was this question so important? Why did this interview feel like something else entirely? Harris stood up, walked around the desk, and rested one hand on the back of his chair. "You're honest," he said quietly. "Most applicants tell me everything looks fine. They lie to get the job. You didn't." Jordan didn't know whether that was good or bad. Then Harris lowered his voice. "Tell me something else, Jordan. Do you think you could turn this place around?" Jordan froze again. This was no longer an interview question. This was something bigger. Something deeper. Something that didn't fit into the rules of hiring. He felt his heart pounding, so hard it hurt. Because Harris wasn't asking like an employer. He was asking like someone passing something on. Jordan didn't understand what was happening, but he could feel the tension shift. The air felt heavier. The silence sharper. This man wasn't looking for a manager. He was looking for a successor. And Jordan suddenly realized. This wasn't an interview at all. This was a crossroads. For a moment, Jordan thought he'd already said too much. He had been honest, too honest, maybe. But something about Mr. Harris's expression, the quiet curiosity in his eyes, gave Jordan an unexpected boost. So he kept going. At first, his voice was small, almost apologetic. "I don't mean to criticize, sir, but the menu feels outdated. People today want faster options, healthier items, signature dishes, something that makes them think, I have to try that. Right now, nothing on that menu does that. It feels like it hasn't been touched in years." He expected Harris to frown, maybe get defensive, but the man simply gave a slow nod, encouraging him silently. Jordan swallowed hard and continued. "And the marketing, honestly, I didn't see anything online. No social media presence. No updated photos. No videos. No promotions. It's like the restaurant isn't even trying to be seen." Something shifted inside Jordan as he spoke. A strange confidence he didn't know he had. Maybe it was the desperation. Maybe it was the silence in the room. Maybe it was because, for the first time in months, someone was actually listening. Jordan felt himself leaning forward, speaking with more energy than he expected. "If you want to compete in this neighborhood," he said, "you need to stand out. But right now, you're invisible. People walk past the place, and they don't think restaurant. They think empty building. That's a problem." He paused, waiting for backlash, for a glare, for the owner to tell him, "You don't know what you're talking about." But Harris didn't. He just kept nodding slowly, intently, studying Jordan like a scientist observing something rare. And for the first time, Jordan felt something he hadn't felt in months. He felt capable. His own voice surprised him as it grew stronger. "Look, sir, I'm not a professional consultant. I'm not a chef. I don't have decades of business experience. But I know what people like me look for. I know what makes someone walk through a door. Atmosphere. Energy. Identity." He pointed gently at the restaurant floor outside the office. "When I walked in, there was no identity. No emotion. No life. Just tired faces. And trust me, if the staff is tired, customers will feel it too." He expected a reaction from Harris, but again, nothing. Just that quiet, thoughtful stare. So Jordan kept going, almost surprised at how easily the ideas flowed out of him. "You need something new. A signature dish. A theme night. Updated decor. A full online relaunch. Partnerships with local influencers. Even small things like redoing the lighting, changing the color palette, adding music, all of it adds up. You can turn this place into something special with the right changes." He tapped the table lightly, emphasizing his next point. People don't just want food anymore. They want an experience. As soon as those words left his mouth, Jordan froze. Where did that come from? He had never said anything that bold, that confident, that true. He felt embarrassed suddenly, like he had overstepped, like he had just given a TED talk he wasn't qualified to give. Jordan looked down awkwardly at his hands, now tightly clasped together. I I'm sorry if I'm talking too much. I just wanted to answer honestly. Silence. He could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. Then unexpectedly, Harris exhaled a small laugh under his breath. Not a big laugh, not mocking, just a single puff of air, like someone who had been waiting a very long time to hear exactly what Jordan had said. Harris stood up slowly, walked to the window, and rested his hand on the sill. Do you know how many people I've interviewed this month? He asked quietly. Jordan shook his head. 8, Harris said. 8 people sat where you're sitting. Managers from big restaurants. People with degrees. People with references. People who came in with fancy suits and confident smiles. He turned around, his eyes sharper now, almost alive. Do you know what they all said when I asked your question? He didn't wait for Jordan to answer. They said, everything looks fine. They said, maybe small changes. They said, I'd have to spend weeks studying the place first. Not one of them told me the truth. Not one of them saw what you saw in 5 minutes. Jordan stared at him, confused and slightly overwhelmed. Harris pointed at the desk. At the resume Jordan thought didn't matter. You came in here looking for a job, Harris said, but you talk like someone who sees the future of this place, not the past. Jordan felt his throat tighten. His chest rose and fell with shaky breaths. I'm not a business expert, he whispered. You're a thinker, Harris interrupted. A builder. His voice softened. And this place needs someone like that more than it needs a manager. Jordan's heart stopped. What did that mean? Where was this going? What was Harris trying to say? Jordan's thoughts spiraled. Is he offering a higher position? Is he expecting me to fix things? Is he testing me again? But before Jordan could say anything, Harris leaned forward, his expression intense. You saw problems, he said. More importantly, you saw solutions. He paused, letting those words sink in. And people like that don't come through my doors often. Jordan sat frozen in his chair. He had no idea he had spoken with so much clarity, passion, or insight. He hadn't practiced any of this. It wasn't a rehearsed speech. It just poured out of him because, for the first time in a long time, he cared about something again. He had accidentally shown the part of himself he always kept hidden. The part that believed he could be more. Achieve more. Build something meaningful. He didn't know he had that flame. And he certainly didn't expect a stranger to see it. But Harris saw it. Clearly. Carefully. Like someone who had been waiting to find that spark in anyone. Jordan realized something. He had just revealed his genius without even trying. And the way Harris looked at him now, like he was more than an applicant, more than an employee, told Jordan that whatever was coming next was going to change everything. The office felt too small for the moment. Too quiet. Too still, like even the air was waiting. Jordan sat there, hands gripping the edge of his chair, heart racing after his accidental passionate speech. He didn't know what to expect next. Maybe a thank you. Maybe a polite rejection. Maybe a we'll call you. But not this. Not anything close to what was coming. Mr. Harris pushed his chair back and rose to his feet, slowly, deliberately, like every movement carried weight. Jordan watched him walk around the desk, each step echoing in the tight office. The man didn't look tired anymore. He looked resolved, like someone who had finally made a decision he'd been postponing for too long. Harris stopped right beside him. For a moment he didn't speak. He just studied Jordan, really studied him. Not like a boss evaluating an employee, but like a man checking if the person in front of him could carry a legacy. Then he said the words that struck Jordan harder than anything he had ever heard. I'm retiring. Jordan blinked. Huh. It wasn't a smart response, but it was all he could manage. Harris sighed, a long, heavy sigh that sounded like it had been building for years. This place, he said, gesturing to the restaurant outside the office door, used to be my dream. 26 years of work. 26 years of cooking, cleaning, planning, fighting, rebuilding. But dreams aren't meant to be carried forever. They're meant to be passed on. He walked to the window, staring at the empty dining room. Chairs stacked, lights flickering, decorations faded. This business is dying, he continued softly. And I'm tired of watching it die. Jordan felt his stomach twist. He wasn't prepared for this conversation. He wasn't prepared for any of this. He came for a job, just a job. A paycheck. A chance to survive another month. And now he was listening to a man talk about the end of his life's work. Harris turned back toward him, eyes sharper than before. "But you," he said, pointing at Jordan, "don't see it as dying. You see it as unfinished." He took a step closer. "You think like a leader." Jordan shook his head quickly. "No, sir, I was just being honest. I didn't mean—" "Stop," Harris cut in. "You didn't give me excuses. You didn't sugarcoat anything. Every person I interviewed before you tried to sell me a dream. You told me the truth." He leaned forward a little, lowering his voice. "And truth is exactly what a leader needs. More than anything." Before Jordan could respond, Harris reached for something on the desk. A folder. A thick, worn folder with yellow papers sticking out the edges. Jordan's heartbeat slowed. His breath caught in his throat. Harris placed the folder gently in front of him. "Open it." Jordan hesitated. His fingers felt suddenly cold. But slowly, he lifted the cover. There were documents inside, legal-looking papers, signatures, seals, lines, terms, contracts. Words he didn't understand. Words he didn't want to understand. He flipped the first page. Then froze. Ownership transfer agreement. His eyes widened so much it almost hurt. He blinked once. Twice. Then looked up at Harris, completely confused. "Sir, what is this?" Harris didn't smile. He didn't joke. He didn't soften his voice. "This," he said, "is the restaurant." Jordan stared at him, waiting for him to continue, waiting for the twist, the joke, the punchline. But Harris just nodded at the papers. "I can't run this place anymore. Not mentally. Not physically. I don't have the energy to rebuild it. But you walked in here and talked about it like it was yours already." Jordan shook his head, overwhelmed. No, sir, I think you misunderstood. I'm not qualified to run a business. I don't have money. I don't have experience. I just came for a job. A simple job." Harris took a step back, hands sliding into his pockets. "And maybe that's exactly why you're perfect for it." Jordan felt dizzy. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. "No," he said again, voice cracking slightly. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Harris replied. "I know you care more about this place after 5 minutes than most people have cared in years. I know you think with your heart first and your strategy second, and that combination is rare." Jordan stared at the papers again, the black ink blurring slightly as his eyes watered unexpectedly. Ownership? Him? A restaurant? He couldn't even keep his car running. He barely kept up with his rent. He wasn't the kind of person who owned things. Harris walked behind him and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "You think I'm crazy," the owner said quietly. Jordan didn't deny it. "But here's the truth," Harris continued. "This restaurant isn't a gold mine. It's not some treasure I'm handing you. It's work. Years of work. Hard work. And most people don't want that." He turned the folder toward him again. "You do." Jordan wiped his palms on his jeans again. They were sweating uncontrollably now. "But why me?" he whispered. "Why someone like me?" Harris smiled, not a wide smile, just the smallest one. A knowing one. "Because people like you don't realize how powerful you are until someone hands you a chance." Jordan inhaled shakily. "I don't know if I can do this." "You can," Harris said. "And even if you don't know it yet, one day you'll look back at this moment and realize you were chosen for a reason." Chosen. The word echoed in Jordan's mind like thunder. He came for a job. A simple, ordinary job. But now, someone was offering him an entire future. A business. A legacy. A second chance at life. He stared at the papers again, breath trembling, reality sinking in inch by inch. He had walked in hoping for a paycheck. And instead, someone handed him the keys to a dream he never dared to imagine. Jordan didn't say yes immediately. He just stared at the ownership papers like they were some kind of illusion, like stress had finally pushed him into imagining things. Who hands over a whole restaurant to a stranger? Who offers their life's work to a man who walked in wearing his last good shirt and shoes that were barely holding together? The only question echoing in his mind was, why me? Harris didn't give him a clear answer. He simply said, "You'll understand someday." Jordan spent 2 entire nights awake. He lay in his small apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about responsibility, thinking about failure, thinking about what would happen if he said yes, and what would happen if he didn't. The first night, fear won. The second night, a small seed of hope started growing. And on the third morning, when sunlight slipped through his window, he took a deep breath and signed. One signature, one small movement of a pen, became the turning point of his entire life. But taking over the restaurant wasn't glamorous. There was no slow-motion moment, no dramatic music, no sudden transformation. Reality hit him like cold water. The restaurant was nearly empty. The equipment was old. The walls were fading. The staff was tired and unsure about him. Customers were becoming rarer each day. And Jordan, he didn't have the skills, the training, or the experience. All he had was determination. The first week was brutal. He arrived before anyone else and left after everyone else. He cleaned tables, took inventory, learned the kitchen layout, studied the budget, called suppliers, and every night he fell asleep with videos playing on his phone, tutorials about restaurant management, marketing, customer psychology, menu engineering. He lived on cheap coffee and cheap sandwiches, but he kept going because this time he wasn't working for someone else. He was working for himself. The first spark of change came unexpectedly from one customer. A tired construction worker walked in for lunch. Jordan took his order personally, served the food personally, refilled the man's drink without being asked, and thanked him like he was the most important customer in the world. The man barely reacted, just ate quietly, and left. Jordan felt a sting of disappointment, thinking the effort was wasted. But the next day, the same man returned, with 3 co-workers. That one customer triggered a chain reaction. Slowly, more people started coming in. Someone complimented the freshly made sandwich. Someone appreciated the service. Someone liked the cozy feel of the place. Little by little, the staff, who once doubted Jordan, noticed his consistency, his passion, and his willingness to do every single job with pride. And for the first time, they began to believe in him. Jordan updated the menu next. He removed old, confusing dishes and replaced them with a cleaner, modern selection. He added 2 new signature dishes, one spicy, smoky chicken bowl, and one creamy garlic pasta that quickly became local favorites. He adjusted prices, improved portion sizes, and constantly worked with the kitchen to ensure every dish tasted the same every time. He wasn't just becoming an owner, he was becoming a leader. Then he worked on marketing, not expensive ads, but simple, human connection. He made a chalkboard sign by hand that said, "Good food, good people, good stories." People loved it. They took photos. Teenagers made TikTok videos. Families shared positive posts. Couples tagged the restaurant's location online. Suddenly, the place that used to be forgotten was becoming a small, warm, beloved corner of the neighborhood. As weeks passed, online reviews exploded. "Feels like home. Best service in town. The owner is incredibly kind. Hidden gem. Must visit." Crowds started forming. Tables that once sat empty were now filled with laughter, conversation, and the sound of cutlery against plates. The walls that once looked tired now seemed full of life simply because the room was full of people who enjoyed being there. But the most emotional moment arrived when Harris returned. He stepped through the door and froze. The dining area was full. The staff looked energized. The customers were smiling. The food smelled fresh and rich. And Jordan, standing at the counter, greeting people by name, looked like he had always belonged there. Harris's eyes filled with tears. Jordan saw him, smiled genuinely, and walked over. "You told me I'd understand someday," he said. "I think I finally do." Harris could barely speak, but he managed. "You didn't just bring the restaurant back, Jordan, you brought it back to life." Months rolled by, and the restaurant didn't just succeed, it became famous. Local news channels highlighted the comeback story. Food blogs gave glowing reviews. People drove from other neighborhoods just to try the place. But for Jordan, the biggest reward wasn't the popularity or even the profit. It was the feeling of walking through the restaurant at closing time, lights dimmed, chairs stacked, the room quiet, and knowing he had built something real, something meaningful, something alive. He had walked in looking for a simple job, a paycheck, a way to survive another month. Instead, he found a destiny he didn't even know he was worthy of. And sometimes life works exactly like that. Destiny isn't always given. Sometimes it's handed to the one brave enough to speak, to try, to care. Jordan didn't plan for any of this. He didn't expect any of it. But he earned every bit of it. He walked in needing help. He walked out holding the keys. and the rest became the story the whole town would never forget. If you enjoyed Jordan's incredible story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unbelievable true stories that will inspire you. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of life-changing content. Share this story with someone who needs a little motivation today.